Welcome back, Commanders. My name is Alchrist, and today I'll be briefing you on your brand new T-Doll, the Candy Connoisseur, Lind. Lind is a Sentinel shotgun-wielding, candy-consuming, sugar-high T-Doll. She deals corrosion damage and hits in massive field-wide AoEs. She scales her damage on debuffs and adds utility to corrosion teams. I will mention that in all my guides, I'll be referring to Confectant's Index as skill points, since this is much easier to understand. Lind has two methods of generating skill points. First is a passive, Sweet Stockpile. Lind will get one skill point at the end of her actions. Her passive also applies Honey Trap to all enemies at the start of the turn. Honey Trap is a corrosion debuff that sits on the enemy until it is triggered. When it is, Lind will apply 3 random debuffs, remove 1 buff, and then she'll perform a support action on them, dealing AoE corrosion damage equal to 80% of her attack, and reducing 1 stability. When an enemy with Honey Trap dies, or an ally deals corrosion damage to them, Lind will gain 1 stack of Candy Glaze, which increases her corrosion damage by 1% for each stack, capping at 10 stacks. But once she gets to 5 stacks of Candy Glaze, her attacks now trigger the Honey Glaze effect on the enemy. Lind's second method of generating skill points is her active skill 1, Assault Spray, which has a 1-turn cooldown. She selects one direction from where she is standing and attacks in a 3x6 area, hitting slightly wider at the end of the AoE. All enemies caught in the attack take AoE corrosion damage equal to 100% of her attack and reducing their stability by 2. This attack will deal 5% more damage for each debuff the target has, capping at 30%. In addition to this, she'll also apply a random debuff to all enemies, as well as gaining 2 skill points. Lind's active skill 2 is Overwhelming Burst, which costs 4 skill points. She attacks all enemies within 6 tiles of her, dealing AoE corrosion damage equal to 100% of her attack and reducing all their stability by 2. If she is at 6 skill points when she uses this, the multiplier of this attack is increased by 5% for each Candy Glaze she has. Essentially, this caps at dealing 150% damage if she is at 10 stacks of Candy Glaze. This attack is not affected by walls and obstacles, but it is affected by height. Lind's basic attack is Repulsive Shot. It has a range of 6 and deals physical damage equal to 80% of her attack and reduces 2 stability. Lind's ultimate is Glucose Overload, which has a 1-turn cooldown. This targets all enemies in 8 tiles and reduces their stability by 2. She'll also apply Ketoacidemia to all of them. This debuff will increase the amount of damage they take from Lind. On top of that, all corrosion debuffs are automatically triggered, including her Honey Trap and Klukai's Corrosion Infusions. After using her ultimate, she can follow up with either her active skills or basic attack. Her ultimate is not affected by walls and obstacles, and can even hit at different heights. When deploying Lind onto the field, the key element to playing her is hitting enemies with as many corrosion attacks as possible to ramp up her Candy Glaze stats. From there, she'll be able to actively trigger Honey Trap and apply debuffs to the target. Her playstyle is quite simple. Just find a spot where you can blow up a group of enemies and then let her shotguns fly. When it comes to a basic rotation, on turn 1, use ultimate into active skill 1. On turn 2, use active skill 2. And that's it. This loop repeats. She's quite simple and kinda just plays herself. She will have 6 skill points every second turn, so active skill 2 will hit at max capacity. On to her pros and cons. She can apply a lot of debuffs onto a group of enemies at once. Great for any T-Doll that scales off debuffs. She also has an enemy buff remover tied to her kit as well. She also has a fixed key that reduces the defense of all enemies on the field by 15%, which is obviously really nice. And all of her attacks are considered AoE, which fit perfectly with the rest of the corrosion T-Dolls. As for her cons, with the way her kit functions, she mainly fits within the corrosion team, as she doesn't get the most out of her passive's ability to trigger corrosion debuffs without Klukai. Since the debuffs that she applies are completely random, they can either boost your DPS or just simply do nothing. Her fixed key that reduces enemy defense takes one of your T-Dolls out of action. This means they can't move or use any active abilities. This is fine with Mechti's mod key, or even Pritya, who can just focus on doing action supports. Still, it can be rather annoying to put one of your T-Dolls out of action. Lind's best weapon is the signature, Thorn's Criterion. It has attack boost, and its trait will increase her damage by 10%. Its effect will increase her damage further for each debuff the target has, and further still since her attacks are corrosion damage. If you have the battle pass, you can use the Expeditionary Pigeon. It grants attack boost, and its trait gives a quick barrier if she destroys cover. And its effect, Shotgun Suppression, will increase damage dealt to enemies that are at max stability or exposed. It also applies stability loss to the target, which will add 1 stability damage to all attacks for 1 turn, but this effect can only happen once every 3 turns. Otherwise, use any other elite shotgun for its base stats. If you don't have any spare elite weapons, you can use her namesake, the Auto 12. It will increase the damage against corrosion debuffed enemies. Her attachments follows the DPS archetype, focusing first on attack percent, attack, crit rate, and then crit damage. A reminder that the only attachment that can have the crit damage is the muzzle. When it comes to which attachment sets to farm, her best set is Corrosion Boost, increasing her corrosion damage by 20%. Otherwise, she can just use the Phase Strike set, increasing damage by 15% if the target has any elemental debuffs. When it comes to her fixed keys, the best ones to obtain is 401 Radio Invitation. As previously mentioned, this is the fixed key that removes an ally's ability to walk or act, but applies a 15% defense down on all enemies on field. 403 Civilized Judgment. If her active skill 2 only hits 1 target, it deals 30% more damage. And 603 Withdrawal Reaction. Before using ultimate, she gets a crit rate boost for 2 turns. Alternatively, if you don't want to use Radio Invitation, she can replace it with Desert Therapy, which cleanses a debuff from her. Fixed keys 201 and 203 are situational and are not recommended for a core build. Her common key is Endless Night, which increases phase damage against enemies with a debuff. A great common key for other DPS T-Dolls. Other common keys she can steal is Prettiest All Points to Damage, increasing damage if hitting 2 or more targets, or Jiang Yu's Might Makes Right, increasing damage to enemies in Stability Break. Otherwise, any common key that increases attack or crit values will work. Next, we'll have a quick look at her fortifications. At V1, she gets stacks of Candy Glaze at the start of battle, and its effects are enhanced to cap at 30 stacks, and increases damage by 2% per stack. At V2, adds a 15% damage boost to her next attack after using ultimate. It also increases Lin's damage from the Ketoacidemia effect. At V3, Honey Trap no longer has a cooldown and is applied every turn. The amount of debuffs that it applies when it's triggered is increased to 6, and its damage is also increased. At V4, active skill 1's multiplier now goes up by 10% per debuff, as well as applying 2 stacks of Alleviation Dependence. This simply prevents enemies from removing their debuffs. At V5, active skill 2's damage multiplier and stability damage is increased, and is further boosted for each Candy Glaze stack. And at V6, she gets 3 skill points after each ultimate, while also reducing its cooldown by 1 if she has at least 10 stacks of Candy Glaze. What this basically means is that you can spam ultimate into active skill 2 each turn for ridiculous damage. If you thought V6 Klukai was broken on her own, having a V6 Lin next to her, who can trigger her infusion explosions every turn, is completely overpowered. To finish off, we'll have a quick look at suitable teammates to field along Lin. As I just mentioned, Klukai is her best pairing. While completely unnecessary, having both a V6 will utterly destroy their enemies. Mech T is the corrosion support. With a new mod key that puts it asleep at the start of battle, Lin can take advantage of that with a fixed key that disables a T-Doll, as Mech T will be busy snoozing anyway. Since she does AoE attacks, it makes sense to have Prettier around as well. We currently also have Nemesis. Her corrosion attacks can help build Candy Glaze stacks. Here are some examples of team compositions. And that about wraps up this character briefing for Lin. I hope this guide helps, and if you have any other suggestions on a build of teammates, make sure to leave a comment below. Until next time, Commanders.